Okay, I think everyone's here. Again, good afternoon. Hello, my name is Lisa Rapay, and I'm the VP of Brand for CosmoProf North America. Welcome. I want to extend the warmest welcome to a session that truly resonates with my excitement. Revolutionizing beauty, unveiling the secrets of new product innovation. This assembly of powerhouse women for this discussion was indeed a no-brainer when I started putting this panel together, each bringing unique contributions that ensure a deeply personal exploration into the groundbreaking beauty innovations. Their combined insights into product development, the impact of DE&I on innovations, and strategic collaborations reflect the shared wealth of experience cultivated over the years, playing a pivotal role in shaping the very future of the beauty industry. I eagerly anticipate the richness and camaraderies of these panel that will undoubtedly bring to the audience. I know I worked with these women in the panel back in my days at Clinique. Steering this conversation is our esteemed moderator. She needs no introduction, Jenny B. Fine, WWD's executive editor of beauty, whose insights I've consistently admired and respected throughout this many years. Without further ado, I now turn it over to Jenny.
Thank you, Lisa. I know that there are a lot of people in this room who do know these three amazing women. For those of us who don't, I will quickly introduce you all. We've got Susan Akkad, the Senior Vice President of Local and Cultural Innovation at the Estee Lauder Companies. Janet Pardo, Senior Vice President of Product Development at Clinique, and Agnes Landau, Chief Marketing Officer of Shiseido. We actually have ground rules today because these women have known each other for almost 3 decades, and honestly, like, my role is superfluous. But if you hear me say Oreos, it's just to get everybody back on track if we feel like the conversation is diverging. So we have our own code word. So really, these three people have created so many of the most innovative, groundbreaking, revolutionary products that I'm sure all of us in this room have used. And I just want to start with a humble brag introductory moment and have them quickly take us through who they are and some of the products that you've had a huge impact on in the beauty industry. So Susan, let's start with you.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. It is so exciting to have you leading this with us, and it's true, we probably are going to have to say our code word a few times. So as Jenny mentioned, I am the SVP of Local and Cultural Innovation at the Estee Lauder Companies, and I'm coming up actually on my 25th anniversary in March. I spent about 9 years on brands, and most of that was on the Clinique brand, leading global skincare marketing, but I also was head of marketing for Origins, and then a detour switch, and from a discipline perspective, head of global communications for MAC. And about 16 years ago, I was asked to develop this practice that was focused on supporting our brands for people of color, globally. And so if I think about my work now, I'm really enabling my friends now. So when I think about something I could brag about of a product that I had a hand in, I kind of go back to my Clinique days. So I launched the Repairwear franchise when I was leading marketing, and that was really Clinique's unabashed, let's go all in on anti-aging, which was a big deal at the time because there was really sort of a question of whether we had the right to be in that space or not. So that's something that I'm very proud of. And then the second one that I'm proud of is Take the Day Off Cleansing Balm. And it was, but it was a little engine that could, because it was a fight to keep it in the marketplace. It was on the chopping block so many times, both when I was on the brand and then after. But it was just the passion of those of us who believed in it, and then it's just become its own star, years later. So I'm really proud of that. It's also a product I love to use every day.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Jenny. I'm Janet Pardo. I'm Senior Vice President of Product Development for Clinique. And over my years, I've been given the role of other brands within the Estee Lauder companies as well, such as Origins, Aveda, and Bumble. But, Clinique is always my baby and always will be. I've been with the company for about 33 years. And most of my time at the Estee Lauder companies has been in product development, and I had one moment when I was running product development for Origins and I left Clinique that I actually took on for 6 months a marketing role, and then I was asked to go back and run product development for Clinique, and then went back fully to the product development role. But it truly is a passion of mine. I can't be anything else but a products person. I have that way of thinking that allows me to kind of like cherry pick things and connect dots and really create innovation that, I get inspiration from anything. And some of the things that I'm super, super proud of is on the market right now that Agnes and I did, which is our Smart Serum. And Agnes and I launched that together, and we are very proud of it because that is a serum that equals the performance of an ablative laser. Quite amazing. I'm also very proud of 2 other products. One is Even Better Clinical, because that's something that, we thought, hyperpigmentation was just something for Asian people, and then very quickly realized this is a global concern and quite an emotional global concern for people, and not all spots are created equal. It was really, really interesting to work with Agnes and Susan, and also with our R&D partners to create technology to really address that for all skins. Really remarkable and very exciting. And the other thing that I'm really proud about, because the best kept secret is that Clinique is also a makeup house, we created Chubby Sticks. Agnes and I did that with Scott and Beth Mom. And I don't know if Claudia Lareda's in the audience, but Claudia was very much a part of that development as well. And that basically took the world by storm. And when we went to CosmoProf in Bologna, maybe 6 months after that launched, every single solitary vendor had something like a Chubby. And someone at a very high level said to me, how does it feel to be imitated? I go, I guess I'm flattered, but can they get their own idea? Chubby's Chubby, so Chubby's Clinique. Anyway, so that's my story. So
Hi, I'm Agnes Landau. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for Shiseido US. I'm the one person in this panel, aside from Jenny, that is not in the Estee Lauder companies. I have worked actually in beauty all my career, 30 years in beauty, from Revlon to Avon. Estee Lauder is where I spent most of my time, 20 years, hence that's why these wonderful ladies know me very well, and also I met Jenny there too. And now I'm at Shiseido as the Chief Marketing Officer for the US. I have worked all of the categories, from hair to body to sun, makeup, skincare, fragrance. I have worked on both US roles and global roles. I headed up Clinique marketing as CMO for about 7 or 8 years. And that's actually where I actually work with Janet and also with Susan on many of the innovations that they just spoke about. So Even Better skincare, but you didn't mention Even Better makeup, so I'm going to mention Even Better makeup. You forgot
Right,
that.
that's right.
Chubby, I also, we did retinol capsules for Darphan when I was in Paris.
That's right,
You
I
forgot
forgot
that
about
too. And I also was at Revlon, so I had the pleasure of working with somebody who's not here, but is a genius of product development and of formulation, Harvey Gideon, who did Color Stay. So that's a little bit about me.
So it's clear that you all have such an affinity for each other. I think that Lisa calls you the love team. And Susan, when you were talking about yourselves before, you said they're my friends, not my colleagues. And I'm just curious, what is the role of the team in your mind, and how important is that dynamic as you think back to what you've created?
It's really something because they are my very dear friends. And, you work and you're working towards a goal and you're creating something that you hope changes someone's life and makes somebody feel a little bit better about themselves. And the commitment we have was to each other and to the brand. And that was just the way it was. But what I'm really amazed by throughout all of the years is that we always had each other's backs. And there's such a trust there. And I think when you're creating something, to have a relationship based on trust you're not frightened. And you can't create, you can't be innovative if you're frightened. You just cannot. The brain shuts down. And the fact that we knew, we held hands together and we walked, we made a decision, and we said, success or not, we're in it together as a team. We had each other's backs, and that camaraderie, that teamwork, that trust, that I've got your back, we're together on that, and healthy debate, right? I mean, we've had a lot of spirited conversations, I shall say. I'm being nice about that, but we have. But there's so much trust in the relationship that it's not personal. We all know we're doing the right thing for the brand, ultimately for our consumer. And that, to me, is a very special and rare thing. And if I can say one thing to anybody that's starting out in this industry, it's important to have trusted relationships in anything you do. You'll be successful if you do that.
And you know, if I can just add on to that, I'm Janet, who, by the way, was my first friend.
Oh, Martine.
Day 4, when I didn't know anybody. And it's also that we learn from each other, because I was on the marketing side, Janet was on the PD side, and to be able to run my strategy idea, which technically was a marketing domain, and have that discussion, everything I know about, you know, formulas falling apart, I learned from Janet. And I think that was also a really big piece of the dynamic, was we really enjoyed learning from each other.
Yeah.
I think the one piece that I would add to that is we always think about mentoring, right? And mentoring tends to be a relationship of somebody that is at a higher level than you, that it's mentoring you, and we're always, you know, starting in the industry looking for that mentor. Look sideways, look transversely. When we started up in the organization, we were all the same level. As a matter of fact, our journey with Susan started here. We stayed at the Lowe's. We were sharing a room at the Lowe's for a clinic sales meeting. So those relationships are really, really, really important in your career, and it's something that should not be overlooked. So I think that's another piece that I think is important to know.
Do you think as creating a great product in art or a science, is there a secret?
It's really, you have to connect dots well to be able to do that. You have to know the science, and you have to be able to think creatively, and you have to know your brand. You know, there's a link between those things, and then you can, because listen, I'm responsible for Clinique, but I'm also responsible for a few other brands. And if you have that, to what you call a science of linking the art, the technology, and the brand, that's the third piece. That's when you create the magic. That's when the magic happens.
Give us an example. And even like if you think about how you connected the dots with Chubby Sticks.
Well, that's a great one, because Chubby, and I could even say it with Even Better or Smart, I can have a whole list of them, because with Chubby, what I also find really interesting, and everybody should know this, not everything is going to be super, super high tech. Sometimes it's low tech, high concept, you know, and the fact that you can connect those things together and, you know, create these wonderful, playful shades that all have names like Chunky Cherry and Whoppin' Watermelon and Grander Grape and Fuller Fig and all these wonderful things, and, you know, just have it in your pocket. You don't need a mirror everywhere you go. You have it, and it's good for your lips. It's a balm. It's a swivel up, not a sharpener. You know, it's all those things that tie into what's modern and what's relevant to people. That to me was a shift in my thinking, because when you work at Clinique, you always think something's high tech, you know, something super, super science, super, super clinical, big numbers, big claims. It was a shift in my thinking, and that probably was one of the most successful products we've ever done. Yeah. But it was low tech, high concept. It was a lip balm. Yeah. But it changed people's lives.
Yep. I think also deeply understanding the consumer is so important. So I didn't launch Even Better. I think I did maybe some of the early groundwork.
You did some of the Asia work.
That led to it. And, you know, at the time, and this was before Even Better Clinical, this was in the first version of it, the hyperpigmentation market for prestige was like the size of a nickel. It was really in the mass market. It was some of the products that like my grandmother had used. Very often they were referred to as bleaching products, et cetera. And I think some of the magic that you're talking about was hearing the consumer and I was really tuned into how melanated skins were experiencing hyperpigmentation, and the way that they talked about hyperpigmentation was really different. So I think some of the magic also comes from all of a sudden having, like, you know, the blinders come off when you have this aha moment of, I can turn something that really hadn't been a prestige concept into prestige, and also I can make it relevant for lots of different consumer groups.
Yeah, and that was important because it helped us understand how to speak to people and to have people understand that not all spots are created equal. Not everybody, it doesn't manifest the same way in all skin tones.
Well, you know, we were a multi-ethnic team, right?
Yeah.
I'm Puerto Rican. You're
Italian.
Black, she's Italian. And
the black
I
girl.
didn't have to go very far to look at the spots. I was looking at them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, oh my God, this is a product. And I used to, when I was in Puerto Rico, we had a product called Porcelana that we used to buy. It is 1% hydroquinone. And the one thing that we knew is that hydroquinone is not something that you want to have in your skin for a long, long time. It's very aggressive to skin. It's not healthy for skin. And again, all that I know about science, I learned from this woman to my left. She taught me a lot. And you definitely, if you could create a product that performed at the same level of a prescription ingredient, right, without that negativity, without that negative of being aggressive to skin, oh my God, you could go off to the races, right? So another piece that I would add here is that there is a lot of innovation that happens when you can transcend trade-offs, right? There are lots of trade-offs when you're thinking about products, right? You want that 16-hour long-wearing foundation, but usually it's cracky and super drying on the skin. Oh my God, if they could give me something that looks great on the skin, hydrating, and also lasts for 20 hours, right? Fabulous product. Oh, I love glosses, but they're goopy and gloppy, and they stick to my hair. If you can have something that actually has that staying power, but it's not that kind of stickiness, right? So there's a lot of innovation that if you can transcend those trade-offs, you can really have something that is really meaningful for consumer.
I feel like that idea of meaningful innovation is so key at this moment of time because there's such a proliferation of products.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly confusing, I think, from a consumer point of view. You know, you're all veterans in the industry, and I'm curious, how do you keep your finger on the pulse of the consumer? You know, everybody has a lot of pots boiling right now. So what's been most valuable to you to really maintain that connection with the consumer on a day-to-day basis?
I think that one of the things that, and as I said before, I think at the beginning I told you that I started 30 years ago, right? So no social media, barely computers, right? I think Star Trek was the phone. You remember the little black, the little Star Trek
me
phone
up, Scotty.
with the little, that was the phone, the flip phone.
We used to launch products with a pencil and an Excel sheet.
Exactly. They're back. So that's another thing. Everything that's all comes back. So you just have to wait a little bit of a time. I think that now, I think in this day and age, is almost impossible not to be able to communicate with your consumer if you're listening, right? Because you have all the social media that is there. It's available to you. Okay, you have, most of us have .coms, right, in our brand, so we have a site, right? So once again, direct communication with the consumer. So there are a bazillion opportunities that if you're open to it, you can really, really connect with the consumer and understand what is happening. The other piece is if you are in a particular location, if you're in a store, by God, also go to the store. See how people shop, see what's going on. There's nothing to replace that. You know, not even research. If you can be, you know, there and looking at what the consumer is doing, go to a Sephora, look at what's happening with Gen Z and Gen A. That's all I gotta tell you. You will see understand a lot of how they shop today. So I think that the tools that are available to us today are incredible, and we just have to use them.
So I have a question though, because it's also like a trend a minute, right? You know, like strawberry this and vanilla that and caramel latte. How do you decide where you want to play and what's a truth and what's a trend for you?
I will tell you that it's very, very difficult, but you, as as a guardian of the brand, of your brand, you have to have discipline. Not all trends are right for your brand. And you have to have the discipline sometimes to just say no. And that is hard because there's a lot of pressure. Everybody's talking about it. It's the shiny penny, it's the hot minute. And then everybody's like, why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you doing it? Well, you know what? It doesn't really, I'm not going to do it because, skin cycling, it's like our dermatologists say, why do you want to stop using your skincare products? Why would you stop wanting to, build collagen if you need it? We're not going to do that. So you have to realize that, slugging and skin cycling and all these things is not something we're going to go after because our equity is around a dermatology and what's the right thing a dermatologist would recommend for your skin. So it's hard because you could get sucked into it. And when the trend is out there, Jenny, it's sometimes already too late. And so you're going to be late with it. So you kind of have to really, really know your brand, know what you stand for, in a trend like color, see what's happening and try to use your brand's equity.
We're finding out right now, we are getting a lot of information from consumers that are basically saying, my skin is a mess. Because I have been using all these things that I've been taught by TikTok and all the influencers to use, and right now it's a mess. I have to stop and get it back in control. So I think that, honestly, we have a responsibility to do the right thing, not to jump into anything.
Well, I was going to say, I don't really live so much in the world of trend anymore, but I do live in the world of inspiration because, Agnes, you were talking about getting into the store, and I would say get into the market is really important because my role is global. So in North America, I'm very focused on the multi-ethnic consumer, but I'm also very much focused on emerging markets that are people of color markets. And the one thing that happens all the time is I get stopped by people I don't know to ask me about what products I use in my hair. You start talking about hair with women, especially textured hair, and it becomes like a therapy session, literally, with cheers often. And then when I've spent time in the markets, I always say you start talking about lipstick, and in about 5 minutes you get into a conversation around self-worth. And so you get this very rich inspiration from basically the anthropology of beauty. So that's, I'm not so much in the trend piece, I'm sort of the culture geek.
And I will tell you, we get a lot of inspiration from our consultants to what you're saying. In store, people behind the counter, people on the front line, talking to the consumer day in and day out, what's working, what's not. I got to hear what they're saying. We are obsessed with ratings and reviews. Obsessed. Product development people are obsessed because we give birth to a baby and we need to make sure the book doesn't close. It keeps on going. You hear them. Nobody's holding back on comments when you write it on a review online. So it's really what you get, the real thing. So we read the reviews constantly on every new product and sometimes on old products like Black Honey. Black Honey's been around since 1971. Wow, look at it now. You read some of the reviews on Black Honey, so it's really important. So speaking to the consultant who's on the front line with the consumer face-to-face, day in and day out, what's working, what's not, even GWPs, what's working, what's not, ratings and reviews, and I got to tell you, I love talking to our retailers. I absolutely love having an in-the-kitchen moment with our retailers. I get a lot out of that as well.
Susan, can you talk a little bit more about the sociocultural aspects? How you pivoted, how that plays into what we're talking about?
Oh, completely. Gosh. So that's really where I spend a lot of my time. So I'm sort of deep in. So it kind of goes without saying that you're kind of grounded in the science and you're grounded in the physiology of melanated skins. And of course, looking at the analytics and the insights around the needs and behaviors. But the magic really happens when you're thinking about what are the different cultural ideals of beauty with different populations, because that's actually where the passion lies, both in terms of how women in particular want to present to themselves internally, but also the sort of the agency that they want to have as they're presenting to the world. And so cultural relevancy and beauty is so deep because it has so many different meanings. Like there's certain shades of lipstick even, that are signs of power and empowerment for Black and Latina women. Wearing foundation in South Africa is a signifier that you have an office job and therefore you're middle class. And so when you sort of are deep into some of those cultural insights, it really inspires your marketing, truly inspires your storytelling, and truly inspires when you collaborate, and especially when you have the kind of relationship that we always did, where it's sort of seamless, the marketing and the product development, to be able to bounce back and forth, and how is that going to affect the development of the product, but then also how is that going to affect the story and the purpose and the passion beyond what does the product do. It's, how is it going to make somebody feel is really, where the culture comes in.
And do you remember when you told us about that, the shades for women in South Africa? Our marketing team in South Africa launched with even better makeup shades for Africa. Scott, remember that? It was wildly successful. It took over all the malls, all the airports, and it really was a remarkable thing. And that all came from Susan's insight. So it's really great.
So innovation is not necessarily, it doesn't have to be new. Innovation can be insights. When you're thinking about outside of the industry, where do your tentacles reach? Where do you look outside of beauty for ideas, inspiration, trends?
Basically, it's everywhere. I think you can get inspiration out of art, science. Obviously, there's so much that is going on. Dermatologist, culture, movies. You always have to be, particularly depending on the brands that are under your preview. You always have to be with your ear close to the ground, right? Basically, also interested in all the things that your consumer is interested in. So if it's culture, if it's movie, if it's science, art, even obviously dermatologist, all of these pieces have to come in and play into your innovation. So it's not only obviously the paper that you're going to get of need gaps or whatever research the company has done, but when you're out there is when you're actually on the problem solution. You're solving the problem. Ideas come in. I have never had a great idea sitting on my desk. It doesn't happen that way, right? It's usually when you're walking and you're getting inspired that things actually happen.
We get inspiration a lot just walking the floor, like walking out there and going from booth to booth. When we go to derm conventions, and we get to see what other brands are doing, but really I love looking at what pharmaceutical brands are doing. I absolutely am obsessed with pharma. Ida Wang and I just came back from China. We presented at the CDA, it's the Chinese Dermatology Association, and we had a booth there. And oh my God, it was so wonderful to be able to see what that's being shown and how pharma is presenting it based on what the Chinese consumer needs are. It was very interesting. It's a great way to connect dots. And usually when we do that, we like to walk the floor with our scientists. So, they explain to us the science and kind of I'm connecting over here and then something over here happens. And it's really a great way to be inspired. But what Agnes said is 1,000% true. You'll never come up with a breakthrough idea sitting behind your desk, ever. It just doesn't happen. You got to get out there and you got to start thinking. Your wheels have to turn.
And street style.
Street style.
It's so inspirational, I think, in fashion, and again, working in a portfolio that's exclusively, prestige and luxury. But the other reason that I really look at street style a lot to help our brands with multi-ethnic consumers is that historically, women of color were creating their own sense of style because for so long we're not necessarily portrayed in fashion media. And so there's a cultural history of basically strutting your stuff. And so I love looking at just, the level of false eyelashes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There is no limit.
There is no limit.
No.
We call it snuffleupagus.
Not fluffy enough.
Yeah.
To be inspired to think, oh wow, and so what kind of eyeshadow should go with that? Or how are you applying it? Or how are you taking it off? Or is it painful? All these different things are from observation and street style, plus it's fun.
Yeah.
And as each of you, as you've risen through the ranks, because now you rule the world and we love you, have you set up a system to make sure that insights move up to you, that you're hearing from the younger people on your team. You know, how do you stay close to what's happening with Gen Z, with alphas, as you age out of that demographic?
I think you have to be eternally curious.
Exactly.
You know, you can't survive in this industry if you're complacent. If it's like, oh, I know everything now and I'm just going to stay in my little throne and push some paper around, right? So I think that thirst for knowing more, understanding what is happening to a new generation, right? Talking to people. I also think that people that are great marketers and great product developers love other people, right? Because you have to be obsessed with other people, with culture, with just learning, right? I think learning is also super, super important, right? Because the other piece is you never will stop learning. Once again, 30 years ago, the little flip phone, and now we are on iPhones and other things. The rapid change of this category, right? And what happened in 30 years, by the way, the change is going to be multiplied as we go the next 20. So being able to deal with that change, to always be thirsting for it and be quick in pivoting, in moving with it, embrace it, right? Because I think that's the other piece, that sometimes we fight the change is here, you know? So how do we embrace it? How do we move with it is really, really important. So I think it's character. It's also how you approach things.
So I'd love to talk about some of the forces of the future that we're seeing and how they're going to impact product development. So Janet, let's start with AI.
Okay. Oh boy, that's a very big category. Big category that touches everybody, no matter what you do, not just our industry, it just touches everything. It's a big category for us. And, you know, like 30 years ago, I had to wait forever to find out information about something, let alone something that was going on in China. You know, like I could never find that out. And now with AI, you get information so fast. You get big data so fast. Sometimes it can be a little overwhelming, but you know, you have to be very careful what you ask for and be selective about what you ask for. But that really helps me stay on top of my game.
So can you give us an example?
Yeah, like you want to know what's happening in a particular category or a particular industry in another country. Information needs to get translated and all that kind of stuff. You get it rapidly now. You know, whereas you used to have to wait forever for that kind of thing. Also, in my world, in product development, you know, and that information for product development is crucial, not because we're going to copy it, but because it helps us do our job and create to the brand. That's very, very important to understand what's happening competitively, and we get that information quickly. But also for product development to understand AI is very important in what we do when we do clinical testing. It's extremely important because it's not just about telling somebody they've got 97% less wrinkles. Like, who cares? I mean, I don't know what that number means to me. It's different for you, it's different for me. But when you show someone, when you show a person that, when you show them the depth of the wrinkle, the length of the wrinkle, all of the things that AI can now give to us in clinical, that's meaningful. So you have to take AI and really make sure that it's going to be given to a consumer. It's going to be consumer facing in a way that makes sense to someone, that's meaningful to a person, not just a number. That's not meaningful. It's how you take it and translate it and make it emotional and make it something desirable for somebody.
Agnes, how do you think about all that data? I mean, we're all so overrun with numbers, with information. How do you sift through it?
So first, I'm going to tie the data to the AI because I think part of, from a marketing end, that is super, super helpful is the ability to actually analyze unstructured data, right, and come up with what are the key themes, right? We're just talking about ratings and review. AI has the capability of actually crawling through all those ratings and reviews and giving you a word cloud of what are the top things, right? So we don't have to necessarily go through that work in a manual fashion, which is how a lot of people are doing it. You know, so we can move to that era where we can have that. Now, data is great, but data is super overwhelming, right? So I have two things to say about data. One is purpose, right? When you're looking at data, you have to have a purpose, right? You have to have a question that you're trying to answer. You have to go in with some kind of North Star. Otherwise, you're going to get lost in the sauce, right? It's like all this stuff and don't know what to do with it. The second thing is about insights, right? It's about looking at the data to garner insights. And, many times we say, oh, this is nice to know, or wow, this is happening. But take it a little bit further. Not only give me the insight, give me the implication. What is it that we're going to do with that piece of information? What is the result of that? How is it that we're changing our store? How is it that we're changing how we communicate with the consumer? How is it that we're changing a headline because of that implication? What is it that we're doing with it? Because otherwise it's useless, right? So I think that I always approach data from how is it that it's going to answer a question? What question am I trying to get answered? What is the insight that I'm gleaning, and what is the implication to that insight?
And I would maybe build on that too, Agnes, and it's a conversation I know all the three of us have had a lot, is also an observation is not an insight, right? And so a lot of information gets served up, and I agree, I use the data to prompt why, or the observation and the analytics to prompt why. And it goes back a little bit, Jenny, to your question about, how do you make sure that the insight or the trend is bubbling up? It's also, who do you ask?
Yeah.
And so particularly, the good thing that's come out of the hybrid work model is that it's not just me going into an emerging market, which might be the only thing that a budget could allow, but now our whole team can meet with the whole team, both junior and senior, and making sure that we're asking the questions, especially of some of the younger people. Because getting it from my peer, I don't know what's the latest club in New York. I haven't gone to a club in 20 years, right? But I know who to ask, right? And I also wouldn't want someone who is trying to examine what's going on in New York to ask me, because it would come through my filter. And so knowing who to go ask some of the young people who very often in certain markets, it's very hierarchical is the culture. So they're not in the meeting. And so I request it. I request to have the young people who, work in, the stores or education, or definitely work with media or influencers, and have kind of that list of questions from the data to then be able to figure out, okay, what's actually the insight versus what's a good observation to act on and what's not meaningful to act on.
And do you have any go-to questions? Are there questions that you always ask?
Usually I start with having people, tell me about what is a beauty motivator in their culture. And then I just keep asking why. It's like peeling an onion. Well, why do you do that? And I try to have that kind of a session if I'm in the market or I've been to the market after walking around on the streets of that city for a while, because I'll never forget being in a market and they never surfaced that one of the top concerns was acne. There was acne all over the place. And I was like, how come you guys didn't mention that? And so from your own observation, then you learn, oh, it's a rite of passage, or oh, it's so ubiquitous, it's not called out, And so it's, tell me about your beauty culture, and then I saw such and such on the street today, what does that mean? And I kind of take it from there.
Janet, another thing that we talk all the time about is biotech and just the advances that are being made in the creation of ingredients and formulations. What impact are you seeing? Are we seeing a fundamental shift in the performance and the definition of beauty products?
Yeah, I mean, that's another big category.
Oh, you have 3 minutes to answer.
Yeah, I know. It's an umbrella. So in my world, it's really about understanding, how you take a natural ingredient, say, for example, and you're able to, hone in on a specific active and then figure out if that active is really potent and how to bioengineer it. That's a really fascinating topic for us. Because can you take a nature and make it a nature identical and then make it like 20 times more potent? And that's kind of like looking for a needle in a haystack, but it's so interesting and it is so the future. And it is something that I find absolutely I'm like, okay, if I can make that better, we're going to find a way to do it, and then all of a sudden you bring, a better product that, delivers benefits in a safe and potent way. That's something we're really focusing on.
So we're talking about new, but for many brands, like the bread and butter is the hero products, and the three of you know that better than anyone. I mean, Black Honey now is such a great example. How do you think about updating, maintaining the momentum of these heroes, and how important is that to you? Or are they really just engines that keep going on their own?
I think, first of all, yes, the hero products for a brand tend to be the biggest products in the brand, but that's kind of like the easy definition. They are also products that recruit and retain. They are the sticky products. You want consumers to start with those products because they're going to love them and they're going to keep coming back for that product, right? The other thing that hero products are many times is they embody the DNA of the brand, right? For me, being with a Japanese brand, Shiseido, we have a watery lotion that is very much part of the Japanese culture, and also something that as a Japanese company, we know how to formulate that is one of our hero products, right? We have a right to win in that category. It's part of the DNA. So they tend to be part of the DNA. Now, touching a hero product. Oh, we have a little bit of experience in that, you and I. Ooh. So you do it very carefully. And what we're saying with that, sure, if you have a technology that significantly makes that product better, that has significant improvements over the performance, then of course it is your responsibility to your consumer to try to bring that technology in. However, if you're touching that product because I have 2 anniversary sales or whatever, be careful.
Never.
Right?
You don't change for the sake of change.
Right. Because you have a consumer that is very loyal and that loves how that product feels and smells on her skin. And the minute you start touching and putting your hands all over it, you can mess up that formula. It's a no bueno situation.
You can mess up your credibility. You can mess up your credibility.
That definitely.
And 55 years to build it, one day to knock it all down. So you have to be really careful with a product, especially with a heritage brand that's been around a long time. There's a lot of brands that have been around a long time, and you touch a core equity, a core product, and not, you have to be so careful what you say, how you say it, because you touch it, you tell them it's a new formula, even though you've tested it up the wazoo on thousands of people, you tell them it's new, they will find the difference.
As you can see, she's still scarred from that experience.
This is why I like commercial innovation.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It's also our job to take that love mark product that is been something that is making people feel fabulous for years and years, and it's something they can rely on, it's something they trust, but it's our job with what's happening modern with AI, with new testing, with new clinical, with new ways of people, how their skin is reacting to the environment, how they're aging. It's our responsibility to do something called commercial innovation. And that means taking that product and not changing anything about it, but testing it maybe in a new way, and finding out discovering something new about it, that the person who's been using it forever was like, wow, that does that? But then you can also recruit, because like Agnes said, a lot of these products still do recruit, but you have to keep it fresh. You have to keep it modern, and you have to keep the message relevant for today's consumers, regardless of age.
What's a product that you love that you didn't create or work on? Susan, let's start with you.
I know it's a cliche, but it is true. I feel like my skin disintegrates if I don't use Advanced Night Repair.
Janet?
Well, I didn't create dramatically different moisturizing lotion. Carol Phillips created that in 1968, and I think, and Dr. Norman Orentreich formulated that, so I'm going to say that. I wish I created that.
Agnes?
I'm going to go with NARS Orgasm. Yeah. And for 2 reasons. First of all, is an incredible product, a shade that actually can look incredibly different and wonderful in many, many skin types and many, many skin colors. But the second thing is genius marketing.
Yeah.
I mean, that name, right? You'll never forget it, right? So I think to the point of innovation can come in many ways. It's not only about the product, it's about the communication, it's about the service proposition, you have an opportunity to innovate in anything that touches a consumer. And I think that product exemplifies that.
Fantastic. I love that. Let's open it up to questions from the audience.
The statement came from Janet, where you said that innovation doesn't come from sitting behind the desk.
Agnes.
So
We both said it.
Yeah.
how do
It's
you
one person,
encourage
it's okay.
your teams, your innovators, to come up with ideas then if they're in the office?
Yeah. Yeah, well,
Can everybody hear?
Yeah,
Did
did
you
you hear
hear
that?
the question? Yeah, okay.
No, you didn't hear that question?
How do you encourage your teams to innovate when they're in the office? How do you find that balance?
Yeah, well, they can't stay in the office. They just can't. So we encourage everybody to go out, to go to shows, to go meet with vendors, to, go to car shows, paint shows, go to, the new fashion exhibit, anything. Get out of the office. That is where your brain opens up. And and I have to say, and I said it, I'm going to say it again, you can't be afraid. If you're scared of anything, you're scared about whatever, your brain shuts down. You have to be out of the office. You have to be free to think. That's when everything starts coming back. It comes into your brain. So for me, going outside and not, it's something that we must do. And every year, everybody's got to sell behind the counter.
Yeah. And I'll add to that, because I do the same with my team, is I also encourage a buddy system, because everyone sees with different eyes.
Yeah.
And so, a big group can be hard, but if you go, like kindergarten, you have like a buddy system, and then you can talk about what you saw, and 9 times out of 10, you saw something very different, even though you saw the same thing.
How do you look at the role of new entrants? There's so many new brands that are popping up every day. So how do you see, the brands that might be the next heritage brands, and how does that influence what you do as a heritage brand?
I think we're always looking at everybody. And
Constantly.
actually, if anything, I think that innovation more and more is coming from the little brands, the indie brands. I think that spirit of taking risk and being unafraid is a wonderful spirit, and I think is embodied by a lot of the smaller brands that are coming into the marketplace. So we're constantly looking at them. I think obviously getting into Sephora is a great place to look at them because they're all there. But also, honestly, online, right? A lot of brands don't go into a retailer, they're D2C, right? So we can see what they're doing. And honestly, I cheer a lot of the products that I actually see coming into the marketplace that are addressing what I call the edges. Right? And it's usually we worry and we are looking at the big categories. We're looking, big moisturizer, big serum, But you see a lot of innovation happening. I mean, I always remember Anastasia when she launched the brows. And she took everybody by storm. It was wonderful, right? It really showed how a category can transform the look of somebody, right? You have now a lot of brands that are coming into the health and wellness segment, right? That is super, super interesting, right? Women sexual wellness. I'm like, wonderful, you go. I think it's great. So I think that there's a lot of innovation and a lot of intersection that is happening and that we always have to be watching out for. And honestly, again, curiosity. If you're curious, you're gonna find out what everybody's doing because you're curious. It's part of what you do.
Right.
And a lot of those indie brands, in my world, because I work on Skin of Color, but I also work on Ageless, I call them the created by for brands. And so they're specifically targeting melanated skins or specifically targeting ageless women. And some of those are very interesting from a product perspective, but some are very interesting from a communication perspective. And so, again, innovation is everything. It can be the name, it could be the phraseology. In some cases, they're sort of like equity plays that happen to have some products you can buy. Or in some cases, they're the edges and they're going against a category. So we will monitor very carefully, looking at lots of different parameters.
You said before that it's not good to jump on trends. Usually once the trend is out, it means that
A little late.
was there ever, not to like ask a negative question, but was there ever a time that you jumped on a trend and you were like, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't?
Nails.
Oh my, yes.
Oh my God,
that
remember
was
when
a
we
bad
did that?
idea.
So
Bad
we
idea.
did jump on nails, okay? We jumped on nails, remember?
Yeah,
But
no
here's the
bueno.
genius behind it, and I'm not patting myself because you and I came up with this idea together. We did nail enamel, okay?
Without formaldehyde.
Without formaldehyde, without toluene, okay, fine. You know, everybody was doing that. No toluene, no formaldehyde. It's kind of like entry for a nail enamel. The gel nails and the dips weren't out yet. And what was interesting is that we clinically tested it, safety, for around the eye area, because we had our dermatologist tell us that you don't realize how many times you touch your eyes, and that the formaldehyde or the toluene in nail enamel is an allergen and an irritant. I mean, doctor, you would know that. And so we made sure that not only did we formulate properly, but we tested it to make sure that it didn't incite any kind of a irritation or reaction. And we went out there with a lineup of shades that was safe for sensitive eyes. And that was an insight we got from our dermatologist. But we jumped on a nail trend that was happening because everybody was launching nails and nail polish. But we twisted it and we made it our own. But it didn't live forever.
No.
So what do you think about the things that haven't worked?
That was one of them.
Yeah, we have some.
Is there
We have
a
some.
common thread? Like, are there any cautionary tales? Like, any like big takeaways?
Well, first of all, honestly, that's one. When you are succumbing to pressure, right? So the point is when sometimes, exactly, if you're following a trend and it doesn't feel right and it doesn't really match the DNA of the brand, don't do it.
Don't do it.
Just
and
don't.
it's hard. Like I said,
Yeah.
you need discipline for that. You need
Yeah.
confidence, and 9.99 times out of 10, your gut is right.
Yes.
You listen to your gut. Your gut's right, always.
Yeah. Not quite the same thing because my role is I'm supporting the brands, but I'll have a brand come to me to say, here's this product that we've launched. You know, do you think we can really make this big for skin of color consumer? And you might think in theory that it really should be yes to everything, or how can we find the way to yes, which is generally the way that it happens, but sometimes it's just not. And you just have to deliver. It's like, don't spend your money on this. Spend your money on something else. This is not going to resonate either from what it does functionally or the emotional position just isn't the win. And you just have to be judicious with both financial resources, but also your human resources.
And courageous.
You need-
pull out.
you need courage.
You need courage because sometimes
And courage
you're
to say
in
no.
development, you're like, you know what, this is not good.
You get
but you
sucked
keep
in,
going.
yeah.
It's like bad money after bad money. It's like,
Experience
exactly it.
teaches you pull out.
Yeah.
It's
Fail
sunk-
fast.
It's
Yeah.
sunk costs. It's like you get emotionally committed
Sunk
because I
costs.
already
Yeah.
did $100, so I might as well be all in for $400. And you have to have the courage to just cut bait.
We have seen a lot of beauty companies introduce the and she said they do these venture units or like incubators of ideas. How is that integrated in your product innovation process, if any?
do we incubate ideas?
Or are they incubated or acquired brands? Do they impact the way that you're working?
You learn something different.
You always do.
You 100% learn how this brand is doing it differently than we've done it. Listen, if you're there a long time and you're doing something a long time and it's working, that's great, but that doesn't mean it doesn't need to be modified. That doesn't mean it doesn't need to be like ramped up a notch or two. So you always learn from a new brand that's being acquired, how the internal development is, how the marketing is, how the creative process works, how they come up with a creative visual campaign. All of that is really, really good learnings. And we're always open for learning what somebody else is doing.
We're both transversal, and
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I love about my job because I overlook 7 different brands. So you have the opportunity to look at that.
Yeah.
Who's doing it great, and how do we copy the system, but always keeping the brand
Right.
in front,
Unique.
right? Anything that is, trademark or the brand or something that should be protected is never touched. But processes, right? Absolutely.
Ways
Why
of
not?
work- ways of
You know what I
working.
mean? Yeah, ways of working, a technology that might be, something that we can share between the brands that again is not proprietary to a particular brand. Absolutely.
I was going to ask about devices because right now devices is a trend.
Yeah.
How is it a good thing to introduce it? By the way, Harvey Gideon says hi.
Oh my God.
Harvey launched the brush with us.
You launch a brush.
Speaking of devices.
Color stay HD fine.
Yes.
So, we've been working on some
Yeah. We love devices, but what we always want to know is it adding something to our products? Is it adding something above what the product does? And that's where we need, testing and safety and all that kind of stuff. So we love devices. It's got to deliver something above and beyond what the product alone is doing. Because our products are pretty efficacious, What can the device bring to the party? That isn't going to make the product obsolete, right? Because we're in the business of selling products. We want to be able to say, here's a device that's going to make this work even better for you. So you're going to have an even better experience. That's something we're always interested in and always test.
Are you teasing an even better device?
Hey,
You never know.
My advice is to have a very strong voice, meaning what is your communication to your consumer. Stick with it and always deliver on the best possible product you can that is safe. That is when people will come back. You don't want to be a one-hit wonder. You don't want somebody coming to you, trying the product once, and then never coming back again, right? That's like my worst nightmare. You want to develop a product that's amazing, has an incredible communication, that looks beautiful, that feels beautiful, but when they put that on their face or when they put that on their lips or whatever the product may be, they cannot live without it. As Estee Lauder said herself, you want to create a product that is something they didn't know they needed, but when they got it, they couldn't live without.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
that's check. You're successful. That's what you need to hold on to, and sometimes it's hard to do that. But you have to remember, as a small brand, keep true to yourself.
Yeah. Have a point of view.
Yeah.
Have a very strong. It's so easy to have mission creep, even in big brands, and just staying very, very focused on your mission, your point of view, and absolutely the quality and like the addictive nature of what you deliver.
Yeah.
Great. Well, you have been a wonderful panel. I think we could all stay in this room all afternoon, but Lisa would.
You've been wonderful, Jenny.
Be with us. So
Thank you, Jenny.
Amazing.
And an amazing audience.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.